Hello everyone. We are going to cover few of the remaining topics that I planned that we'll cover in our OOPS course. Um, so we have six topics yet to be covered. One is the lambdas notation in C++. That is good to know when we want to discuss about STL algorithms. After STL algorithms, we will talk about smart pointers, where we don't really need to do new and delete operations because those are one of the key issues because of the memory leaks that happen because of somebody missing to delete some memory, or two people trying to access the memory and then one of them deleting it and the other becomes dangling pointers. All those issues with pointers can be dealt with if we use smart pointers. So it is important that we learn that. Then there is a thing called move semantics, which is required in these days when we write low level performant programs in C++. It is about efficiently using the memory that is being consumed by variables while we are trying to create new variables from older ones or copy some value returned by a function into another variables. We will talk about those things in move semantics discussion. Also, I want to touch upon test-driven development in C++, where we will see how writing unit tests and using unit tests as a tool to develop correct code or write correct code is such a fruitful thing to do, and especially because C++ is a low-level programming language. Most systems that are developed in C++ are quite complicated, and they really implement detailed workflows and scenarios. Some of them work very close to the system. So if we cover them, cover our developed program, our application program with unit tests, that would help write correct program. So it is important to know about it. It is a good topic to talk about in your interviews. So I thought I'll cover that, some portion, some part of it. Then there are a few things that I want to touch upon that are coming in C++ 2020. So we'll do that as well. Um, First topic is lambdas. So what are lambdas? They are basically a short notation for writing functions and functors. So if we think about it, let's say we have a function that simply writes hello world, right? So how will we want to do that? That function hello world is called from main, right? So we need to write a function with which will have a return type, okay? And we type hello world there, and then once we define this function, we call this function over here. What about a functor? If you remember, a functor is a class or a type that has its function call operator overloaded so that it can be used like a function. So HW class, let's say, and we have public um, um, bool operator overload. Uh, this is the operator and that is the function pointer. Um, so just a second. Yeah, just for the part where we just want to um, return nothing from the operator, we can just declare it as a void return type. So we can say cout hello world and execute our program. right? So this type now, HW class, hello world class, and HW as function, they can be used here. So I can call HWC like this, okay, after creating an object of it. So I need to first create auto HW object equals to HWC, and then I can call this object as a function. So if we run this, it will output hello world for this function and for this object. So you can see that HWOBJ can be used like a function call, but it can have um, its own state. So we see this hello world getting printed. So what is the point? The point is that just to use this function HW or HWOBJ as a functor, we have to do a lot of coding for it. So it is useful if we multiply use this HW function at multiple places, then it is good to have it refactored out as a function. If we reuse HWC at multiple places, then also it is useful for making it a separate class. But what if there is only one usage of HWC? Okay, and then we have to, if you think about it, what we need to do is, just to be able to call a functor like this, we have to declare it a proper code. We have to write proper code for it. We have to write HWC, declare it as a class, we write public access, then we do this operator function call overload, and we write this hello world. What was our real objective? Our objective was to print hello world. So the real important thing in our case, which matters to us really, is the line number 11. Rest of the code is basically a boilerplate code which we had to write because it has to be in a particular format or way. Like it has to be that this function call operator has to be overloaded, things like that. But to achieve our objective, just to print this line, we had to write a lot of this code. Now, when we talk about lambdas, they are a shortcut to writing such a code. These lambdas are used in STL because in algorithms, for example, they need functor or functions and we pass them. So it is convenient to just write the lambda or this whole code in place wherever at the call site itself where it is required. So we'll go through those examples. So this is the like kind of basis why we need an alternative or a better notation to write such functions, such functors, and such functions, which may not be needed by anybody else just because one algorithm needs it or one library needs it. We can just define them in place. So how do we define them? So let's say that we want to print again hello world but using a lambda. So the syntax is uh, you have you begin the lambda definition by a square bracket. As soon as the square bracket starts, the compiler knows that it is beginning of the lambda. Then you have these round brackets, which is basically a parameter list, and then you have this function body. So we can say that this square bracket is called a capture list. We'll talk about it little later. This is parameter list, and this is the function body. Okay. Now we need to print hello world, and let's see how lambdas can help us. So I define a lambda. There are no parameters because we just want to print it, and we define in our body of the function hello world, the line that really matters to us in this case. right? That's all we really needed to do. So this defines a lambda. Now it is just like a class definition or variable definition. You can see that this is like a class beginning and kind of operator overloaded, function call operator overloaded with the body of that function call operator overloaded. Just that its name, etc., is not visible to us as programmers. But if you see the assembly line, assembly code that compiler generates, it will create a class out of it. So I can capture or I can store this as a variable, let's say f, okay, and then I can call it. Obviously, we need to end it with the semicolon, and then we can call it. So if we do it now, we will still should be seeing hello world as output. So you can see there is a hello world output has come. Second thing is we can also call this. Obviously, if we just declare it and run it, and we don't call it, then there is no output, right? So you must call lambda function as a function. One way to call I showed you. The other way is that you call it immediately. So you call it like this, put a call here, okay, and then you execute. It will call this function immediately and output the same hello world string. So this is the idea behind lambda functions, how you can define this whole class just by this notation, single line notation, and you can even call that functor immediately. Okay, so this is the um, way to define a lambda and also call it. So two ways we call the lambda function. Okay, now lambda functions can also take parameters. So we have already seen the syntax. It has got a parameter list. So if I define a lambda which takes a parameter list, I can say, let's say it takes two parameters, integers int a and b, and it returns the sum of a and b. So first, let's say it prints the sum of a and b. So we'll say a plus b is space and a plus b. Okay, and we call it immediately. Now, calling it immediately is like a function call. So what is the need here? We need to add the numbers that add the parameters that the lambda will take. So this function, this operator, parent meaning the function call operator, is going to be called for this object the compiler will create implicitly by these parameters. Okay, so if we now see, it is immediate call, right? So the answer should be printed as 10. A plus b is 10, or sorry, we can basically write the variable names. A plus b is 10. So now it should look better. Okay, so this is the function call. What about, let's say, if we want to um, print the, instead of printing the value, parameters. Okay, what if we want to return a value from lambda? How do we do that? So we have this um, parameter list, but what if it returns? So what if the code is something like this? So let me copy this code. Instead of printing it, I want to return the value. So I would say return a plus b. So now a plus b return value, but this function overload, the operator overload for function call, does not specify any return value. By default, it is void. So how do we tell the compiler that it will return a void? Sorry, integer. So if we put it here, what happens is it gives us errors because the class definition itself starts from this square bracket. So anything before that is not associated with it, so it will return an error. So there is a new syntax to specify the return type in a lambda, which is an arrow index and return as int type. So this arrow index and followed by a type will tell the compiler that this operator overload, this functor, is going to return an integer. Okay. If you remove this, you see that there is still no error that is being reported by compiler. So compiler can interpret the return type from the return statement, and therefore in this case, for example, there is no need really to specify the return type. But if there is more than one line over here, then uh, it won't interpret basically the return type. It will say you need to provide me the return type. So in that case also you will provide the return type explicitly. So I just wanted to make sure that you understand that there is a separate syntax for return type, new syntax for return type for the lambdas. Okay. Now, obviously it is getting called, but nobody is capturing the return type, the return value from this lambda. So let's capture that. Okay. Maybe sum is better. And now if we can print cout sum, it will be obviously 10. Let's see that. Okay. So this way you can specify the parameter list, you can specify the return type, and still, succinctly be able to describe the purpose. The real purpose of this whole lambda is basically the body of the operator function called operator overload. This a plus b. That is what we are really interested in doing. Okay. Now, there are few more things that we need to understand before we get into real usage of lambdas. One is what happens in this case where we have, let's say, two variables, int a equals to 7, b equals to 3, defined in a scope where our lambda is also defined. Okay. So if I, let's say, use the same code from above, and I um, want to use this a and b, one way is I can pass a and b here. That will do. But this way this will work because I'm using this a and b, and this a and b as a local variable for that function is also defined, and so it works. Right? But what if I want to refer to these variables only inside the lambda function, meaning I don't have this parameter list. Okay. And I call the lambda here itself. It needs to return the value of a and b, but a and b are defined outside of the lambda. So you can see that there is an error here, which means the lambda does not access the the variables defined outside of it by default. Okay, what we are technically not doing is we are not capturing the parameters, capturing the variables defined outside of the lambda. So to be able to use these parameters, or to make that this lambda has visibility on these variables, we will need to capture them. So that is where our capture list comes. So you can capture in multiple ways. One is you can capture by specifying the names of those parameters. Now you can see that it is capturing and the errors are gone. Now if I uh, print the sum again, it will print again the sum 10. Okay, so that means now this scope, the inner definition of the functor, has visibility, or it sees the variables that are defined outside of this functor within the scope of the functor. So basically this lambda definition should be in the same scope as A and B. A and B cannot be outside of the scope of lambda, but within the scope that can be, they can be captured. Second important thing is that they are captured by value. Okay, so if I say um, let's say I just want to write a lambda captures A and it returns um, it basically says A equals to A plus 1, A plus equals 1. It simply does this. Okay, and now if I print the value of A, let's see what is the value. So what it is saying, um, so modify the L value. Just a second. Okay, so in this case, it says that A is not a modifiable value. It is trying to help us because A is captured by value here. Okay, so adding the value, adding a number to A is not going to help. So it is actually getting captured as a const, like a const A, right? So what we need to do is that if we say that no, we know what we are doing, so we can write keyword called mutable. This will tell that this A that I am trying to capture by value is modifiable. So then it will let me increment the value. But unfortunately, because it is captured by value, I will still get A equals to 7. It's not gonna be 8, right? It is still 7. So the point being that when you just pass the variable or capture the variable in the lambda, it is captured by value. Any increment locally will not affect. It is a copy of the original variable, just like a function call. We have variables getting copied. If we want to capture it by reference, we can use that using ampersand sign. So there, then we don't need to write this mutable, because when we say it is a reference, it is by default mutable. So now if we run the program, it will say it will increment the value of A by 1 as expected. Another syntax is to capture by value with equals to sign. Equals to sign means that you capture all the variables defined in the scope. So you don't have to identify which variable you're trying to capture. Because earlier when I wrote A here, and if you try to access B instead of A, it won't work. It will say there is no B defined inside of it, right? So you have to use A. But if I put equals to sign over here, that means capture all the variables. So all of the variables defined in the same scope of lambda become visible inside of the body of lambda. And then you can access B. Obviously, B also, because it is local, it's not gonna increment the value of B, which is lying outside of this scope. It is still going to be 3. Now, what if you want to capture all by reference? You simply use only the ampersand sign. If you use the ampersand sign, then it is going to be captured by reference, and any changes in the value of B will reflect outside of the lambda. Okay, so that is also new syntax, using equals to sign to capture all the variables A and B or whatever is defined in the scope of lambda, and use ampersand to capture the variables by reference. Okay, so this is the introduction to lambdas. Okay, now we are going to see more usage of lambdas in little better scenario. The previous discussion was just the introduction. Now let's say we have vector of integers. 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to, let's say, 9. And we want to use we want to find how many are even integers, okay, out of these. So let's put them in a region. um, region, I guess. Okay, okay, now what do we want to do? Let me get rid of this code as well. Now what we want to do is we want to find how many of these numbers in the vector of integers are odd values. Okay, so there is a algorithm called count underscore if. Count if means given a collection, meaning the range in the collection, it will execute a function on each element within the range, and if the predicate or the function returns true, then it will include it in the count. So basically we can define a functor which will say v begin, v dot end, that's our range from where to where the count if should calculate or count, and here we want to define the predicate. Now how we can do that? So this is a place where we want to define, or a functor is required. So let's define that functor. We'll create a class, let's say is odd, okay, public, and we need to override its operator, and it should return bool. So overriding the function call operator, it takes an integer x, that is the current element in the collection that countif is going to evaluate, and then in the implementation of it we will return simply x percent 2. If x percent 2 returns is 0, that means it's an integer, it is a even number, and we return false. and if it is non-zero, then we return that number and it becomes non-zero number is true. Okay, now what we can do over here is we can call this is odd functor. We is odd, and we need to create it. So this is a default constructor call. It's not a function call. Okay, it's a default constructor call because we are just creating this object. There is no object. We are creating this object and supplying it. It is like same like this auto uh, predicate equals to is odd function object. This is the constructor call and passing the predicate here. Inside of this COUNTIF execution, the operator function call will be called. So inside of this COUNTIF, somebody is going to write something like predicate function call. So don't confuse this constructor call with as if it is a operator function call. It's not. It's a constructor call. This is the construction of the object. We are using the class name and constructing a class object of it, which is captured by referred to by this predicate. Okay, so don't confuse that with the operator overload. So we will say we'll create a functor here and pass it on. Now we capture these count odds and print it. Odd count of odds is space odds. Okay, well, let's run it, see what it tells us. So the number of counts should be 5. What if I want to now print number of evens? So even though we can have a like a logic that return the number of odds and then minus the number with the size and all, but I want to use a functor basically. So I want to say auto something like evens equals to countif v dot begin v dot end and then something like is even. To do something like this, I need to go back to again the same code. I need to create a separate class for this even calculation is even and return basically the negation of x% 2. Okay, and I'm done. But if you see, the real important thing is again evaluating this, right? The whole code I have to write is like declare a class, override this function call operator, and we have to write separately two classes for each of the two algorithms. It works, but it is a lot of kind of unnecessary writing of the code. So I say cout count of evens is space evens. So it will work. Let's put a end line here and not required, but end line here, and let's run it and see what happens. The count of odds is 5, count of evens is 4. That is good. But what is not so good is that I have to write so much of code, whereas all I was wanting is to just check this whether it is returning non-zero or zero value, right? So I can get all rid of all this by using our lambdas here. So what I do is I define new lambda, take integer x as the value that the function call operator will pass. Countif will call that predicate and pass the x here like this. Okay, and then simply say return x percent 2, and I'm done. Here in the even part, I can say lambda int x return not of x percent 2. I'm done. How cool is that? I can get rid of this whole code. I don't need it because I have defined the lambdas, the whole class, basically the functor object inline here itself. Okay. Now if I run this code, well, we'll see the output is going to be same. The count of odd is 5, count of even is 4. Now you can see how compact the definition it makes if we use lambda. We don't need to write a lot of code, and this is very very useful because most STL algorithms do take functors as their predicates, and we get saved because of this expression, this lambda expression, by using lambdas instead of using class and writing all code which compiler could write it for us. Okay, so um, that is an example where lambda is really useful. One more example is, what if I want to see if lambda is a multiple of some number. Okay, let's say we have a number multiple, let's say of 3. How do we now define the lambda over here? So I will say auto mults how many numbers in the given collection are the multiples of 3. So now I need to use, I can, this int x is coming from this collection. Every time COUNTIF is visiting a number, it is passing that number here to my function call operator, and in the body I am calling, I am saying x percent multiply, right? I want to see if x is a multiple of x is a multiple of this multi number, right? If it is, then it is going to be returning 0, which is false. So I want to return the negation of it. It should return true when it is a multi, is a factor of multi, right? Um, Now, how do we access this number, this variable inside of lambda? Remember that we can capture it. So multi, I type here multi. I type it by name. It works. Okay, so I can say cout count of multiples of multi is mults. Okay, and then if we run it, we will get to know the number as count of multiples of 3 is 3. If we have 4, then it will be number 2. Okay, my number of multiples of 4 is 2. So you get the idea. What if I were to use a full class? If you see, if I were to write a functor for this, how will we write it? My class muls will have public, obviously a bool operator overload, function call operator overload. It will take a parameter, right? And it will say return same logic, negation of x percent multi. Now where is this multi counts? Obviously you can imagine that before this function call is called, multi should be defined, right? Because we need to know this multi, only then we can run this number. So how do we define that? How do we set the state of this functor with multi? Constructor. So we write mul's constructor, which takes an integer m, okay, and it basically um, sets multi, and multi is our private variable. Okay. Now what we do over here is that we can create this object mul's C, so that I can discriminate with the variable name. So we can create this object auto OB, maybe mul C, passing it multi. Okay, and just to distinguish it, I can create it as an underscore variable. Okay, underscore, and what is wrong here? Okay, now variable of structure name and underscore. So this code I have to write as a functor, and then I can use the same function here to use that functor. Instead of this, I can say OB, and it will call and work, right? Now, if you compare these two things, they are doing the same thing. If I just type this again here, the answer will be basically same, right? So answer is all same, which basically means that when you are passing or capturing a variable inside the lambda, that exactly is what we are doing over here as well. We are kind of capturing the variable that is passed in the constructor with our member variable. We are capturing m into multi and then using it later. Same thing, we are capturing the local variable multi and using it wherever is required. So basically, capturing is like defining the member variable of a functor class. So you can think about this like this. Whatever is the capture list, it basically maps to the member list here. Okay. And whatever is the parameter list over here for lambda, that maps to the parameter list of the function call operator. And indeed, if you see the assembly code for this lambda, it is actually like that. It defines a class name, declares a member variable, and then overloads its function call operator with a function with one parameter, and then writes this into its body. So it is equivalent to like that. So capturing is what we have been doing in our regular programs also, whenever we have a constructor which takes some parameter and assigns it to the member variable. We are capturing m in multi. Similarly, we are capturing multi in a member variable of this lambda, but its name is not defined. The compiler will give that name. We don't need to really worry about it. Actually, it is given the same name like multi. So I hope that it is clear to you how lambdas make the expression of the code very, very compact and useful. And obviously, if there is anything that is multiply useful at multiple places, we have a functor syntax already available. So this is about the lambdas. I hope things are clear to you, because we will be using lambdas now onwards indiscriminately in the STL algorithms as well. Thank you, everyone.